Yep.
Okay. Once again, I appreciate you all sitting in here. We're going to go through some training related to the interviews that I conducted a few weeks ago. The interviews I conducted were asking you what are resources that you lack or some issues that you have with instruction in your classroom. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of those problems, identify a solution, and go over with you how to implement that solution. Before we get into the actual training, I shared with you all a Google Doc in your email, and it has already posted in it the direct links that we'll need for today's training. So if you don't want to type in a full link, you can open the Google Doc in your email and just click on the links from there. Did everyone get that?
Yes.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. So these problems that you see on the screen are problems that were common between all of the participants that were interviewed. So when I interviewed all of you, these were problems in common that you felt you faced with instruction and lack of resources. So mostly that had to do with the students not being motivated, not being engaged in your lesson, having difficulty monitoring their discipline as you teach, and monitoring what they're doing on their iPads. You also felt that the lack of personnel in your room and parental involvement left you without support you needed to improve upon these specific issues. So when I reflected over those common themes that I saw from the interviews, I feel like these things are all rooted in a problem of student engagement and motivation. If students are engaged in your classroom activities and you have them motivated, then your discipline problems will be reduced, and then you won't need as much personnel or you don't need as much monitoring as the students are involved in the instructional activities. So what we're going to do is I'm going to provide solutions for you that are rooted in engagement and motivation, because I feel like that's the umbrella of all of the other issues fall under. So, you know, teachers, you always have to have learning objectives. So our learning objectives for today are, after this training, we're going to select and implement a research-based strategy to improve your engagement and motivation. We're going to create a teacher account with a program called Go Soapbox, and then we're going to explore those activities, what they look like from a student perspective, and then you're going to plan a activity from Go Soapbox to use in your classroom, hopefully as a motivational or engagement tool for your students. So that's what the purpose of the training is today. All right, so to get started, we're going to do a little pretest. So if you will either use the Google Doc that I shared with you, there's a direct link for Kahoot, or you can just enter the code that you'll see on the screen. It's this short Kahoot to see what you already know about research relating to engagement and motivation. I'll give you a few minutes to get there. Prizes will be awarded later.
Who's first? Who's first?
Solomon's first.
Because you just typed in a J? I just did my first name.
Are you Ricky?
We're ready?
The real Matt Smith?
All right, so there's a total of 5 questions. Good job.
Oh, please.
Everyone got that one correct. Clearly, expectations are a factor in motivation. All right, Maggie.
What?
Oh, I hit the wrong one.
I just
She
think-
switched sides.
She switched sides
on us. Oh,
I wasn't very close.
All right, Maggie's the one to beat.
no.
You're
Okay.
not far behind. Rita? Ricky?
I won. I won.
Uh-oh.
I meant to click the wrong. No, okay.
I'm on the bottom.
It's all
No, there's still
telling
some. The real Matt Smith is beneath you.
Real Matt Smith. Mine's really slow moving, so I just get
I think my laptop's slower than your iPad.
That's what the children say.
Somebody he didn't answer.
My thing didn't load enough. Quick enough.
I'm sorry. All right,
It's
last
okay.
opportunity to beat Maggie.
I think everybody should have a chance
Forgive me.
I'm thinking that Maggie had an N, like she works with
Well,
you every
promise.
day.
Maggie clearly knows her research.
That's
what
right.
we
Go
hear.
Good,
Maggie.
good for Maggie.
Maggie.
All right.
to. Says I got top 5. I mean, that's not bad.
There's
The
16
top
playing.
Solomon was on the bottom.
I was on the bottom. I swear my laptop's slower.
Okay. All right, so the things you saw in the Kahoot are what I'm about to present to you in a nutshell. But there is a lot of research about student motivation and how you can motivate students of all ages. But one of the biggest things I saw is this statement right here. And it sounds self-explanatory, but if you think about it, this is how most of us feel about any task we're asked to do, even in our jobs. So when you give students a learning activity and you ask them to do something, you want them to have a great benefit that comes from being successful at that activity. Because if it doesn't benefit them in being successful, then they'll choose to be lazy most of the time and not do it. Because the failure, the penalty for failure, or the consequences of failure don't compare like the benefits do. The failure is not going to hurt them as much. So you need to make sure when you're assigning activities and you're planning activities that your benefit of success is great and the students understand how an assignment is going to benefit them. Also, once students are given an activity, they need to be provided opportunities to fail. They need to be provided opportunities to make mistakes. And it's very important how you react to their mistakes. Because when students make mistakes, they're going to look at how you feel about it, how you treat them, and what opportunities you give them as a result of their mistakes. If you're very negative about it and they don't have any opportunities to improve and learn from those mistakes, then they're likely going to repeat the same cycle over and over. Whereas if you create a comfortable environment where they know that making a mistake is okay, we're going to fix our mistakes and keep going, they're more likely to keep trying and persevere rather than shut down. It motivates them when you provide them opportunities to improve upon their mistakes. Now, there's a fine line between providing them opportunities to improve upon mistakes and then just giving them opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. They need to be able to work for it and still show that they're motivated to work towards that goal. And then obviously this is most teachers would agree that when doing lessons you need to make sure the students have some sense of how it relates to their life or how they can apply that in their lives. And that will motivate them to complete a task. A little bit different is research about engagement. Engagement is all centered around basic human needs. Students have desire for success, curiosity, originality, and relationships. So how this affects you is if you have a relationship with that student and you can connect with them, you can give them opportunities to express their own creativity and through their own passions, then they're going to more likely engage in activities you give them. Now that's not always easy, but if you can incorporate some activities that involve these factors, then your chances are greater than if you don't do any of it at all. So when you give students learning activities, make sure that they understand why they need to master it, what's the point, and then also allow them to express and to try to reach goals kind of in their own way. Any questions so far?
No, good.
Okay, so break this down. Let's wrap this up. Here are some simple things that you can do. You can pick some to try, day to day, or you can try to implement some of these slowly. They're very simple things. So you can try to provide students with opportunities to have choice in their learning activities and to have some type of control or say-so in their learning activities. I know some of you at times use learning menus. I think that's a great way for students to engage in an activity at the level they're at and to be able to choose how they show their mastery. Feedback for students is really important. If they don't have feedback from you, they don't know if they're on target or off target, so they're just kind of working aimlessly. So feedback is important, especially when that involves praise or encouragement. As you praise students and encourage them, it's going to build their confidence, They're going to connect with you more often, which improves their motivation. Again, we talked about having benefits and having tasks that relate to students. So that's something that you want to bring up when you make an assignment. The teacher, you need to model for the students a positive tone and enthusiasm for learning. I know that sounds silly, but teachers set the tone for a classroom. If you have a negative attitude or you're down and out every day, the students are going to feed off of that, and they're not going to engage in what you're doing because they're not going to buy into it. When you have goals set for students, you might want to help them set goals or allow them to set goals for themselves, but they need to be things that they can actually achieve. You don't want to have students that are on a level here and you set a goal for them up here. It needs to be something that they're capable of achieving, and you need to help them lay out the steps that they need to follow to achieve that goal. Also, providing assignments that have personal interests incorporated. You know how varied our students are in their interests, even in our own grade level. So providing activities that involve interests other than just your typical athletics or music or just, you know, the typical word problems that are standard. Incorporating different topics will help students engage in your activity. And then, of course, our students are social. So anytime you allow them to collaborate with learning involved, they will engage in that more times than if you give them an individual assignment for the most part. There are a few introverts that would rather work by themselves, but in general, if you can involve collaboration, involve even a little bit of competition, then students will sometimes buy into that more than if you just give a regular old individual worksheet. All right, any questions about research, implementing that? All right, so I want to ask you a few questions before we move on, but before I do that, this is a very short video that incorporates research from Keller. He talks about motivation, and he lays out a couple of factors that relate to that. So I wanted to show this to you real quick before we have our discussion.